Good afternoon to you all. So, continuing our discussion on the model systems in biological research. In order to understand the effects of chemicals on living organisms, so we need to study the living models. When I say to study the effect of chemicals, the area is about toxicology research. With respect to toxicology research, traditionally it has relied on human volunteers or laboratory animals. Nowadays, there is an increasing move toward in vitro model systems. And we know that cell lines are becoming more popular in research for the reason that they are widely available and easy to handle. And this is possible if the user has access to appropriate facilities and if the user has undergone relevant training. And in most of the publications coming out of various laboratories in the toxicology research has widely used some of the specific cell lines, say for example the HeLa cell lines HEK293 and even their derivatives. One thing which we have to remember is that these cell lines are immortal. That means they are capable of unlimited proliferations. So what does this mean? It means that there is a continuous supply of what is commonly assumed to be the same cell lines or the same material even after several hundreds of generations. But this is an assumption, and this assumption is not supported by any of the scientific evidence till date. So what is known through scientific research is that the cell lines, they are prone to genetic as well as phenotypic changes, and this is due to the alterations in their growth conditions or even the handling, the way the cell lines are handled, and evolution of clonal populations over a period of time, or maybe simply due to the stresses associated when you start culturing these cells. Right. So it doesn't mean even if these cell lines are considered to be immortal, that means they are capable of unlimited proliferation. It doesn't mean that the cell lines are safe even after several generations. There is no scientific evidence for that. What is known is that cell lines, they undergo genetic and phenotypic changes due to alterations in the growing conditions, the evolution of clonal populations over a period of time, or maybe the way the cell lines are handled, or maybe the stress factors that are associated with the culture conditions or the environment. So there are many instances where or when a cell line can no longer be traced to the culture or donor from which it was first established. You will find so many examples for this. When you trace back to the originator, it becomes very difficult to find out from where the cell lines has been established. So such a misidentified cell line, instead of corresponding to the original donor, is derived from a completely different source, and it is often from more aggressive tumor cell lines, say such as the HeLa cell lines. And what could be the reason for this? This is frequently caused by cross contamination, which is the accidental introduction of the cells from one culture to another culture. This is the main reason. And this cross contamination may occur through lapses in aseptic conditions. When you maintain the aseptic conditions, if there are any lapses in maintaining the appropriate or the proper aseptic conditions, the cross contaminations happen. Say for example, if a bottle of culture medium is shared between two cell lines, even a single droplet spreads, then the cross contamination is bound to happen. So what happens? This results in a mixture of different cultures. And in case of tumor cell lines, say for example HeLa cell lines, they typically grow more rapidly and are more resilient at low density when compared to many other cultures. So what happens if the cells are having the capability of growing rapidly? So the more rapidly growing contaminating cells, we call them as contaminating cells, they can overgrow the original culture within several passages or generations, thus resulting in a complete replacement of the donor or the original itself. So tracing back to the original may not be possible in such instances. And knowingly or unknowingly, many a times it is like the user is quite unaware of these changes that is happening. So what happened in 1960s, to date back in 1960s, most of the studies conducted by the researchers, they discovered that many widely used cell lines, they were misidentified. If the cell lines are misidentified, then the results what you expect or what you obtain doesn't correlate. And I'm speaking about 1960s. Even today, many of those misidentified cell lines continue to be used. And to whatever the misidentified cell lines that are being used, and to this list, many more have been added. Right. So there is one platform to identify and register a misidentified cell line. We call this as the ICLAC, that is the International Cell Line Authentication Committee. You can see the homepage of the ICLAC. So what does this committee does? It curates a register of misidentified cell lines, and this currently lists about 576 misidentified cell lines. Among 576, there are cell lines from various sources where we don't know the original or the donor from which these cell lines have been derived. And there are 531 cell lines which are misidentified with no known authentic stock. That means absolutely the donor is not known. And we have 45 cell lines were initially thought to be misidentified, but authentic stock has been found. Now there is a clarity for this category of cell lines. And there are 73 cell lines that do not correspond to the original donor. But how does the contamination has taken place? That is unknown. And 67 cell lines come from a different species. This is interspecies contamination. And 8 cell lines come from non-human species. Right? So this data you can find it in the International Cell Line Authentication Committee, that is ICLAC portal. Right. So there should be a mechanism to overcome a continuous use of misidentified cell line so that it doesn't lead to wrong interpretation of the data. And how to address this issue? Because I said even today many of those misidentified cell lines are continued to be used. So what can be done to address these problems in cell line usage? Most problems with cell lines can be traced back to their inherent ability to evolve in culture and to inadequate reporting and quality control testing by the research community. Can you stop a cell line undergoing any changes? We know that it is not possible to stop a living cell line from undergoing any change. But the research groups or the laboratories can minimize the changes using good culture practice, that is cell culture practice, good cell culture practice, so that cross contamination is avoided. If cross contamination is there, definitely this is a major cause for the cell lines to rapidly grow, right? And within several passages they overgrow the original culture. So good cell culture practice means no contamination, no cross contamination, not allowing the cross contamination to occur. Right? And the need for good practice is not confined to any one application. So the entire research fraternity should work to improve the use and reporting of cell lines and other in vitro model system on a continuum basis. So just to make you understand, there are 4 practical steps that can be taken to make the cell based research more reliable and reproducible. This comes as a recommendation, right? Number 1, cell lines should be tested for contamination. Whoever is working on the cell lines, these are some of the steps that has to be taken to make the cell based research more reliable and reproducible without introducing a misidentified cell line. Number 1, Cell lines should be tested for contamination. Number 2, new cell line information should be more visible. Number 3, reporting of cell line information should be more transparent. And number 4, any institute or organizations, they should develop the policy guidelines for cell line use and handling. Now the first point says that cell lines should be tested for contamination. So there should be authenticated testing methods where you can identify the misidentified cell lines, and we have the short tandem repeat profile, that is STR profile, and this is recommended as a method for human cell lines, and even it is available for some of the non-human species. And we have the genotype based methods such as the SNPs, that is single nucleotide polymorphism analysis, which are suitable for authentication, and they may be used to confirm the species and strain of non-human cell lines too. And the phenotypic based methods are there: study of morphology and then immunochemistry. Though they are not sufficient for authentication, still they or the characteristic features what they give may be a typical result for some cell lines. So even it gives some information, may not be that authenticate information, but still it should be considered. And most important is contamination for mycoplasma, that is microbial contamination testing must be done, especially for mycoplasma contamination, right? And in number 2 we have the cell line information should be more visible. Clearly it should be given whenever we or any research group publish their research work. In any research paper there will be a section called materials and methods, and in that section there should be a dedicated paragraph on cell lines and the cell culture reagents used, and the information should be presented in a tabular form that lists the key reagents and resources for experimental work, and each cell line listed should be accompanied by a unique research resource identifier. We abbreviate this as the RRID, which can be generated through a collaboration between the Cellosaurus knowledge base from XPECY, and then we have the resource identification initiative. So this is the web page of the Cellosaurus from XPECY, and this is the web page of the resource identification initiative. So this enables the cell line to be flagged for searches and data analysis. So any cell line, if it does not have an unique research resource identifier, that is RRID, then a new cell line entry may be proposed by contacting the Cellosaurus web portal. So then it becomes a new cell line. If it is not available from these two portals, if it is a new cell line, then we have to drop into these portals and register it as a new cell line. And the third point says that reporting of cell line information should be more transparent. That means sufficient information should always be reported in any manuscript so that any individual, if he or she wants to perform the experiment, whatever the information that is given should be able to be replicated in the same conditions, and the results should also be reproducible. There should not be any variations. So to that extent, transparency should be maintained. If I do the experiment with a particular cell line and I get some results, and if some X, Y, Z wants to repeat the same experiment, even they should be getting the same results with the same cell lines. That means whatever the data I report in the manuscript should be transparent. Right. And the authors, they should verify that a cell line is not on the International Cell Line Authentication Committee. That means it is not an misidentified cell line. So if some of you in future, if you are working on cell lines, the first thing what you should remember is cell lines as a model system. If you are using cell lines as a model system for your research, first thing what you should remember is you should look for the cell line which you have selected, whether it is registered as a misidentified cell line or not in the International Cell Line Authentication Committee portal. Right? And number 4, we have the organizations should develop policy guidelines for cell line use and handling. So there are excellent guidelines which are available on good cell culture practices, because the objective is to avoid the cross contamination. So you should have evolved a policy for the use of cell line and even for handling of the cell line. So the policies should clearly mention how to use the cell lines and how to handle the cell lines. Right? So these are some of the web portals where you can really browse most of the informations regarding the misidentified cell lines and the resource identifier allotted cell lines. So before choosing a cell lines, make sure that you browse through these web portals which is worldwide accepted, and then you can proceed with your research design and experimentation. Right. Now moving on to the next model system, that is the tissue culture models. Tissue culture is not a new terminology. The use of tissue culture as a research tool to investigate the pathophysiological basis of diseases is the current area of the molecular biomedical research. No doubt it will always require, or it is always necessary to translate and validate the observations seen in the in vitro conditions to the patient or animal, and the ability to investigate the role or the roles of individual variables free from any co-founders is tremendously increasing our understanding of the physiology and their role in the diseases. And we know that it is not feasible in most of the time to conduct certain research in humans because of the ethical constraints. but still it is interested from the physiological response point of view in humans. So they use the human tissues. Again, it is an in vitro model system. So in vitro characterization of the human tissue is an acceptable choice, right? Because it is not feasible to conduct the trials using humans. So human tissues, definitely it is an acceptable choice. So most of the time the tissue culture model system, they have been utilized extensively to investigate the questions pertaining to physiology and disease. And we know that through various literature that the isolation and propagation of the epithelial cells, the human epithelial cells, it has allowed the researchers to begin to characterize the interactions and reactions that occur in response to various stimuli. So human epithelial cells has been extensively used, and we know that through several research publications that these human epithelial cells have been used to characterize the interactions that occur in response to various stimuli. And the culture of other human tissues, it has also allowed researchers to investigate the pathological events as well as other physiological responses. Right. So numerous, as an example, numerous cancer cell lines have been established so that you can study the responses of these cells to the chemotherapy and then determine their biological properties, what happens after the chemotherapy, or what is happening during the process of chemotherapy. So in total, the use of cultured human tissues has provided a wealth of information on the pathogenesis of diseases that affect the human system. Right. So looking at the advantages and limitations of the tissue cultures as model system, we know that this is a penultimate tool for any biologist, especially if we are working on some of the pathological and physiological problems, because this has allowed the researchers to study the isolated interactions in its near normal environment. It is like tissue culture means most of the time we use the tissues as such, so it is almost near normal models. So these tissue culture models has allowed the investigator to determine the effects of one particular treatment on a particular cell type or even on a tissue which is not feasible in vivo studies. Right? And additionally, the tissue culture models of diseases especially, it has allowed to obtain samples and make observations that are more readily than it is being done using the in vivo model systems. So the first advantage is the near normal environment it provides, and second thing is to study the effect of a particular treatment on a particular cell type which is not visible in vivo system, and these tissue culture models of diseases especially has prompted us to obtain samples and to make observations more readily, because you can easily obtain the samples whatever the tissue from whichever the organ, which is not possible in case of the in vivo studies, right? And these models do not take into considerations the complexity of biological systems. So there is no complexity. If you are looking for the whole organism, the complexity is a big factor. But here in this case, or these tissue culture model systems, they do not take into considerations the complexity of biological systems, right? So keeping this in mind, tissue culture technology has proved to be successful in several ways, right? So I'll stop my discussion over here. We can continue our discussion in the next session and try to learn more about different model system, including the tissue culture models. Thank you very much.